What's up, guys? Thanks for checking out the video. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about this project I'm working on right now. So it's actually for a guy who I've done a couple projects with. He wants to make a 3D print of this Toyota Tundra truck, and basically he found this model online that someone had already made. Shout out to JDaniel92 on CG Trader. But basically, when he bought the file, the truck itself wasn't meant or intended for 3D printing. It was really just meant for gameplay or for renderings. So when he sliced it, or when he imported it into Cura, it wasn't a clean mesh. And I can show you when I slice here, I can see what he's talking about. Basically meaning that the mesh or the model isn't manifold, and there's a lot of errors in it. So if I preview here, you can see that there's quite a few problems with the file. And this is not knocking against the original design or anything. This is just saying for 3D printing, there's different methods and ways of modeling that you'll have to adhere to if you want your model to be clean. So in this case, you can see that like our windshield is gone. Here's like some things are going wrong with like the tires and the rims. Just overall looks like a messy kind of model. So I'm going to be working on cleaning up this file and making it 3D printable, so that it'll be a usable file for 3D printing. And I'm going to jump around between a couple different programs here. I'm going to jump between Rhino and ZBrush and Cura just to make sure that everything's going right. So I'll just go through my process and see what works, see what doesn't work, and I'll just throw it all into a time lapse and maybe do a little audio throughout the way. So stick around and let's see how it all turns out. So the program that I'm using to clean up this model is Rhino 3D. It's my program of choice, really. That's kind of the one that I feel most comfortable with. But as I mentioned earlier, just starting with the tires and the windshield were kind of the big ones that I noticed were, not going to be able to be printable. So right here, I just started taking out some of those and turning off the layers that I knew wouldn't totally work. And I just started kind of playing around with the polygon count as well. I can start to refine the mesh, and because a lot of these models on CG Trader or like one of the like model upload sites, but they're really specific more for like renderings, and they're not really meant for like high quality printable models. So I just started messing around a little bit with the outer mesh and seeing if I could thicken it and get something that's usable and able to be printed. And a lot of this is just experimentation. There's never one set guideline, I guess you could say, with how to fix a model. They're all kind of specific, and these tires actually gave me quite a bit of problems. The trying to get the rims and the tires all like one cylindrical piece. I messed around with it for quite a while. As you can see here in this time lapse, I was like stretching, pulling, trying to get things all aligned and closed. But I found that I think it was actually the outer shell. Now that I'm done with it and figured out what the problem was, I think the outer shell was what was giving me the most problems. I really should have just started over, and that's where I started separating them out on different layers, like where I went from green to the orange layer there. So, and then I jumped into ZBrush for a little bit because I wanted to play around with the Dynamesh and see if I could clean up that outer shell. So that's what this program is right here. It's ZBrush. And to be honest, I'm still learning the ins and outs of ZBrush, but I'm starting to get the hang of it, and ZBrush is a really powerful program for if you want to clean up a model and get it suitable for 3D printing. And that's actually how I fixed up the outer frame or body, you could say, of the car. And then I re-imported it back in once it was a closed watertight mesh. And then there's still some areas that I had to clean up, like the fins in the bottom there. I don't know all the terms for the cars, so bear with me, car enthusiasts, but I was, just cleaning up some of the odds and ends for it. There was a bit that wasn't able to be saved, just because of how small it had to be printed. But then, it was a continual process once I kept checking into the slicer program and seeing if it was good or not. It's a back and forth for a lot of this. But as I mentioned before, those tires really gave me a lot of problems. That's why you see a lot of this time lapse here. But essentially I ended up just extruding the whole thing and making it all solid. And then, just keep checking in the slicers, seeing if it'll work. And I think we're getting pretty close to the end with at least the modeling wise. But that's pretty much my process. I can go into further detail, like maybe a lifetime modeling for it, but this is kind of my process. It's kind of an ongoing work, where you constantly check and see if it's going to be printable or not, and just keep going back and forth. But the client was really happy that it was able to be printed, and he had a lot of fun with painting it and putting it on his decals and customizing it for himself. So if you guys like this video, give it a like, give it a subscribe to the channel, and also please leave me any comments down below if you've got any questions or any projects you're working on that you need some help with. Feel free to shoot me a comment and I'll get back to you. And thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.